We often talk about ruining. When something happens, do you think we're going to rue the day? When DeAndre Swift got traded, there was almost no ruining. When Jalen Carter got passed up in the draft, there was ruining.
Well, each of the last 2 years, there's been some ruining, whether it was Jordan Davis or if it was Jalen Carter. Those are both players that are on the Eagles, both at defensive tackle, both positions of need, that the Lions passed on to take skill position players.
I would argue strongly that literally every team could do this if you wanted.
Oh, absolutely.
And I don't know why, if you dwell on these things, I think you drive yourself crazy. When your team is bad, it is part of the reason that explains why you're bad. When your team is good, it becomes an exercise in making yourself miserable, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I guess the debate is if your team's good, not great, and we don't really know what the Lions are. But I can't remember if it was you or King that said it's about the position. It's not only the player, it's the position of need.
King about that point.
Okay, so here's the thing. Right now, Detroit's defensive tackle position, which is often reflected in your run defense, is actually acquitting itself quite well. Atlanta came into Detroit through 2 games with 71 carries for 341 yards, 4.8 yards per carry. Detroit held them to 44 yards on 20 carries, 2.2 yards a carry. One of the big reasons why was the way Aleem McNeil played. I can't remember which beat writer says, on the second watch, how great Aleem McNeil was in that game. And it's early, right? All of these sample sizes are early. But if we had Jalen Carter in the middle of the defense, we'd be hailing the look at the impact he's made. Do you know what the Lions are in rush defense right now in the NFL?
They got to be close to the top because I know going into the game, it was, I think, 77 yards per game. And then you mentioned that they gave up how many yards rushing?
44.
Yeah, so that's going to knock that number down to whatever, 50-something. So it's got to be close to tops in the league.
They're 5th in the NFL in rush defense. They're 5th in the NFL in yards per carry allowed. And they got the pass rush going last week.
And they took on a team that could run the football without question. I mean, some people might want to blow past that and say, well, Kansas City throws the ball more. That's not really fair.
Right.
But Seattle, they run the ball. Kenneth Walker, right?
Yep.
Charbonnet and Geno Smith, they didn't really run wild against the Lions, and then you saw what Atlanta didn't do.
Yeah, now, I guess my point is, and I've made this point a lot, is that there's more than one path to success, right? The only road to the Super Bowl doesn't go through having Jalen Carter in the middle of your defensive line. And with each week, remember the cost of Jalen Carter is Jahmyr Gibbs and Sam Laporta. Those are the 2 players that they got with the draft picks where they traded out of the spot to take Jalen Carter. And I think early in the year, people were rather dismissive of, not dismissive, but didn't see as much value with Sam Laporta. But
there were a lot of people that were dismissive of Sam Laporta. There were people that didn't like that they took him instead of, was it Mayer, the big guy from Notre Dame?
Yep.
We took a lot of calls about that.
That's true.
So I think it's fair to bring that up because obviously Sam Laporta has hit the ground running to start his NFL career.
Now, you can make the case, if they'd kept DeAndre Swift, then they wouldn't have drafted Jahmyr Gibbs. And then they could have taken Jalen Carter and gotten Sam Laporta potentially in the second round anyway. Or got him with the Jack Campbell pick or whatever you want to do it. But you see, when you start unraveling these things and going back, you wonder if you'd actually still really do it. I mean, it's possible. And we've talked about this a lot too. You can't be perfect. You have to take some chances here and there, and it's possible that they roll the dice that Aleem McNeil would blossom this year and that their defensive line could get the job done, specifically against the run. And so far, so good. I mean, it's too early, and I'm not doing this as any kind of victory lap for the Lions defense, but it's a hell of a decent start for their run defense. And it will get tested more each and every week. last year, the Detroit Lions rush defense ranked 29th in the NFL. 29th. And so far this year, they're 5th. Do I expect them to finish top 5? That's too early to say. But, let's not forget the strides that they have made in that regard anyway.
Yeah, look, to try to, match it up, you're going to go down a rabbit hole that's just not worth going down because there are so many, in particular with this past draft, with how many moves Brad Holmes made.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not as simple as saying, we had this second-round pick and this third-round pick. No, I mean, how many times did he trade on the second day in particular when he had rounds 2 and 3? They were all over the place, maneuvering back and forth, up and down, whatever you want to say. So I don't even know. I mean, to try to pinpoint who was there is just, it's kind of crazy. But if you stay on board and just look at the pick at 12 and you could have had, if you didn't, let's say you didn't pass on you had it at 6. If you wanted to take Jalen Karsch, you could have taken him, right? Just leave it at that. That's fine. And it's a situation that right now through 3 games, the Lions done a great job against the run. And what they did against Atlanta was very impressive. But I'm wondering, and because Atlanta's an interesting test case. There we go. Taste test.
They are an interesting taste test as well.
Are you going to eat that?
I am not.
That's bits of real falcon.
It is. It's a dirty bird, though. The point I was trying to make is that the Falcons are interesting because they have multiple weapons on offense.
Mm-hmm.
They have a really good young receiver in Drake London. They have Kyle Pitts, whom the Lions really wanted, but wasn't available to them in the draft. And he's this new blend of tight end receiver that's sweeping the league. And then they have Bijan Robinson. And along with Tyler Algier, who was outstanding last year.
Yep.
So they've got the running game and they've got guys in the passing game. So Dan Campbell said today that they knew what they were going to try to do defensively against him was stop the run. That was going to be the number one thing. And yet you still have these other options. It's not just as simple as, let's stack the line and good luck.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to defend other positions, and that's where everybody else comes into play. But if you go back and watch that game, or if you remember what you saw in the game, what the Lions did differently in that, which I hadn't seen last year or in the first couple games this year, was the way that they used the linebackers. Because you had 3 of those of the 4 linebackers on the field at the same time. That you had Jack Campbell out there with Anzalone and Derek Barnes. One of those guys might be lined up as an outside backer or more on the line of scrimmage, but they're there, and they're there for a reason. They're there because, they're good enough where they can cover a tight end if they have to, but they're also there because it's an extra insurance that you're going to stop the run, and it paid off brilliantly. Scheme it up. That's how Aaron Glenn did. He passed with flying colors on Sunday. It was brilliant. But you're not going to do that against every team. It's not going to be the same scheme against every team. I think that just happened to be because the number one thing the Falcons can do is run the football. They weren't very good at passing the ball the first couple of weeks of the season, but they sure could run it.
Yeah.